Have you ever wondered why so many treatments for addiction fail? Why despite endless rehab programs, therapy sessions, and medical interventions, relapse rates remain staggeringly high, sometimes 80 or even 90%? The truth is, the conventional view of addiction often misses the deeper picture. It tends to reduce addiction to brain chemistry, to faulty habits, or to lack of willpower. But what if addiction is not primarily about weakness at all? What if it's actually a spiritual crisis, a misdirected search for connection, transcendence, and meaning? That's the radical insight one pioneering thinker brought forward, that people don't turn to alcohol, drugs, or compulsions simply because they lack discipline, but because they are thirsting for something deeper, something the modern world has forgotten how to nourish. Addiction as misguided thirst. When you listen to the stories of those who struggle with addiction, you often hear the same themes: a longing to escape emptiness, a desire to quiet the inner noise, a desperate attempt to feel connected, even for a moment, to something beyond themselves. Alcohol, for example, has long been called spirits. That double meaning is not a coincidence. For many, substances temporarily simulate what genuine spiritual experience can offer: release, transcendence, unity, dissolution of boundaries. But instead of healing, the effect becomes destructive. Addiction, in this sense, is not random self-destruction. It is the soul's misdirected attempt at self-healing. The psyche is searching for wholeness, for transcendence, but when healthy pathways are blocked or unknown, it reaches for substitutes, chemicals, behaviors, or destructive patterns that mimic the sacred without truly satisfying it. The missing dimension in recovery. This perspective sheds light on why conventional treatments often fail. If you only focus on stopping the behavior, if the entire goal is simply abstinence, you may never touch the deeper hunger driving it. True recovery requires more than willpower or discipline. It demands a fundamental shift in consciousness. Not just eliminating the substance, but replacing the counterfeit experience with an authentic one. People who achieve lasting recovery often describe it in terms that sound spiritual: a profound awakening, a deep realignment, a sense of connection to something greater than themselves. It's less about fighting the bottle and more about discovering a source of strength and meaning that finally makes the bottle unnecessary. Addiction, a sensitivity gone astray. Here's something startling. Those who fall into addiction are often not the weakest among us, but the most sensitive. They are individuals whose inner lives are rich, whose longing for meaning is intense, whose capacity for depth is profound. But when the world offers them no healthy vessel for that longing, no community, no spiritual framework, no creative channel, those same sensitivities turn destructive. Addiction becomes the only available gateway to transcendence. In this light, the addict is not morally broken. They are in many ways closer to the heart of the human struggle. They carry the same thirst that drives people to prayer, to art, to love, to philosophy. The tragedy is not their longing, but the pathway that longing has taken. The soul's cry for transcendence. Consider this. Why do people describe drinking, drug use, gambling, or even obsessive behaviors in almost religious language? They speak of losing themselves, touching infinity, feeling one with the universe. The parallels are uncanny. The very word spiritus means both alcohol and spirit. It is as though the human psyche, starved of transcendence, confuses one for the other. But the counterfeit never lasts. What begins as euphoria ends in emptiness. What feels like connection turns to isolation. What looks like freedom becomes slavery. Unless the underlying thirst is addressed, the thirst for wholeness, for connection with something greater, the cycle will continue, no matter how many detox programs or behavioral therapies are tried. 3 pathways toward transformation. If addiction is the soul's misdirected search for transcendence, then recovery must be more than abstinence. It must offer a real pathway to the sacred. There are 3 essential dimensions to this process. 1. Shadow integration. Addiction often hides what we cannot face. Pain, anger, vulnerability, unmet needs. These become the shadow we suppress. Substances or compulsions serve as shortcuts to numb that shadow, to silence feelings we cannot bear. Recovery begins with courage to ask, what am I running from when I use? Is it grief? Is it loneliness? Is it shame? By facing these shadows, through therapy, journaling, inner dialogue, or deep reflection, we begin to reclaim what was exiled. Integration means holding pain consciously instead of numbing it unconsciously. It is learning to suffer without being destroyed. 2. Authentic transcendence. If addiction is counterfeit transcendence, then it must be replaced, not just removed. That means cultivating practices that truly connect us to something greater. For some, it's meditation or prayer. For others, time in nature, artistic creation, deep service, or community. The form matters less than the essence, the experience of awe, gratitude, and union that quiets the ego and opens the heart. This is the nourishment the soul was searching for all along. 3. Ego-self balance. Addiction often distorts the relationship between the ego, the conscious personality, and the deeper self. Sometimes it inflates the ego into grandiosity. I can control everything. Other times, it collapses it into helplessness. I am nothing. Healing requires a new balance. The ego must surrender, but not collapse. It must learn humility without self-erasure, agency without arrogance. That balance often comes through developing trust in a wisdom larger than the personal self, whether understood as God, spirit, or simply the deeper unconscious guiding us toward wholeness. Stories of transformation. Think of someone who drank not out of pleasure, but because silence felt unbearable. Night after night, alcohol dulled the shame of childhood neglect. In recovery, they discovered that the drinking was never about the bottle. It was about the wounded child within who longed for recognition. Or consider the healthcare worker who drowned her empathy in wine because she absorbed everyone's suffering. Through deep inner work, she realized her drinking masked her own unmet needs. By learning to honor her boundaries and connect to a source of transpersonal love, she transformed her weakness into strength, eventually guiding others out of the same darkness. These stories remind us, recovery is not about returning to who you were before addiction. It's about becoming someone greater, someone more whole, more conscious, more connected than ever before. Addiction as teacher, not enemy. Seen this way, addiction is not just a curse. It is also a messenger. It tells us where the soul's thirst has been misdirected. It points to the sacred hunger we tried to satisfy with substitutes. The task is not to destroy that hunger, but to redirect it. The same fire that fueled destruction can become the fire that fuels transformation. As one thinker once said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. For many, addiction is very crisis that pushes them toward that path, the path forward. So what does this mean for you or for someone you love who is struggling? It means asking deeper questions, not just, how do I stop? But what am I truly seeking? What longing hides beneath this behavior? What could fulfill me in a way that no substance ever could? It means daring to explore shadow, cultivating authentic transcendence, and building a balanced relationship with the self. It means seeing addiction not as failure, but as a call to transformation, a closing invitation. If you're listening to this and something resonates, take a quiet moment to reflect.
What feeling do I most avoid when I'm sober? What activity in my life gives me a real sense of connection and meaning? What could I begin today, small, consistent, genuine, that feeds my soul instead of numbing it? Write it down. Commit to it even for 10 or 15 minutes daily. That small step can be the beginning of something monumental. Because addiction is not just about breaking chains, it's about discovering who you truly are beyond them. Recovery is not merely freedom from substance. It is freedom to live fully, to connect deeply, to embody the wholeness your soul has always been seeking. If this message spoke to you, subscribe for more explorations into psychology, transformation, and the deeper mysteries of being human.
Share your reflections in the comments. I read them all. Because healing isn't just about survival, it's about transformation. And your story, no matter how broken it may seem, can become the medicine that heals not only you, but others walking the same path.